Yeah, there are just so many different ways that colonisation has operated on us. And when I talk about colonisation, I always like to think of like Patrick Wolfe, the Australian scholar who's passed away now, but he kind of points out very clearly by studying what different colonial forces have done in different settler colonial contexts, that the agenda is to eliminate, dispossess and replace Indigenous people with settlers. And so when we think about the way that they eliminate us, they do that through, that violence and things like that, the more explicit forms, but also the less explicit forms, so through assimilation, through investing in places where Māori tend not to live, through enticing us to the cities with better housing, job opportunities, extra social welfare benefits and these types of things to force us into the centre. So that is like an explicit way of breaking down our own sovereignty, of breaking down our tribal structures. So urbanisation is very much part of that process, but I wouldn't suggest that it's completing colonisation, because they're just going to carry on finding new ways of doing that. The treaty settlements are part of that way of trying to eliminate Māori identity, eliminate Māori sovereignty, by transforming us from sovereign nations into trusts operating under Crown law and defining how we should identify ourselves.
When will they ever think that colonisation is complete? My area of interest is in Te Reo Māori and whānau language revitalisation, and sort of seeing over the holiday period where we had a whole bunch of Pākehā relations, using Te Reo Māori and being very encouraging of Te Reo Māori, but then in the same room having, whānau relations who are saying, oh, everybody's speaking Māori, oh, I feel, and so in my mind I'm thinking, this is so wrong, this is so disheartening that our own whānau members are carrying about, language ownership, who gets to use it, the expectations that we have on ourselves about, the criteria that we place on ourselves. These are all implicit things that are happening, I think, for those who are in the urban space. Sometimes it can be more obvious when a colonising behaviour is presenting itself to you.
I was reading the story of the arrival of Tainui to Aotearoa and the way that people spread out, because I was trying to think about our tribe spread out across the Mutu. And there's a colonising idea that where you lose control and other forces take control of the situation. And I find that a part of what we're trying to do is to say to our own whānau, whether you speak the language or not, whether you know back home and know your marae or not, he Māori koe. And that as a starting point that we can actually control our identity. I had a conversation with Bruce Stewart, who built Tapu Te Ranga, and he was of a very strong mind to say that I carry that identity with me, and whereas all these other forces are pushing this stuff, you're not and we're saying it to ourselves, if you don't know the whānau back home, you're not really connected. If you don't know the language, you're not really who you look your appearances to be, and I feel like we should come at it from the other side and just say, he Māori, I hope, if we could build that base and confidence in who we are.